Wildlife toxicology of pesticides. Can we track effects to the population level and beyond? According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, pesticides are used to control various pests and disease carriers such as mosquitoes, ticks, rats, and mice. Pesticides are also widely used in agriculture to control weeds, insects, infestation, and diseases. Pesticides are designed towards the goal of optimal efficiency in the targets and minimal side effects in non-target organisms in the environment. Due to the close polygenic relationships of pesticide species, it is the overall goal to do both target and protect other organisms. As seen in point A in figure 1, there has been an increase in research of effects due to pesticides in the past 28 years. As seen in point B in figure 1, there has been an increase in the rate of publication to pesticide classes. As seen in point C in figure 1, the publications of herbicides, fungicides, and insecticides remained constant throughout the past 23 years and had no effect on the pesticide class research. As seen in point D in figure 1, there is a shown bias towards domestic lab model species in relation to wildlife animals. Overall, pesticide research remains a scattered assortment of data for different species with records of population declines or altered community structure. There has been lots of controlled lab experiments done along with multiple field studies. In these field studies, along with new approaches in population modeling, the goal is to use research to test the toxicity effects of pesticides.
The next two slides will be talking about pesticides and the unintended effects on individuals. Toxicity happens mostly in aquatic systems. Chronic toxicity has led to deaths of communities and species in major ecosystems. DDT is carcinogenic and has affected birds and rats mostly through exerting estrogen and androgen properties to them. This figure can be broken down into two sections: terrestrial organisms and aquatic organisms. In the terrestrial organisms, which are mammals, birds, insects, plants, and fungi, the most common unintended effect is reproductive failure. Also, the population size will decrease. In aquatic organisms, which are reptiles, amphibians, fish, aquatic plants, fungi, and invertebrates, neurotoxicity is the biggest unintended effect. This affects behavior, memory, and metabolism. Also, similarly to terrestrial effects, it also commonly results in a mass wipeout of a population.
Population. What are populations? In biology, population refers to all of a group or a species that are capable of reproduction in one geographical area. An example of this would be all of the squirrels that live in Kentucky. Another example would be all of the bears that live in Canada. Population level effects of pesticides. Pesticides affect the level of population in many areas. For example, throughout the 7 groups tested, 6 of them saw some sort of decline in population when exposed to the pesticides. Birds, amphibians, reptiles, and insects and other vertebrates saw immediate decline in their population, while fish and mammals saw an increase in mortality, which in time hurts the growth of the population and eventually leads to the decline in population. Though plants and fungi saw no decline in the population, they did see impairment, which could hurt their population over time.
Now we're going to look at the community and ecosystem level effects of pesticides. A community is a variety of different species of wildlife that live in the same common area. An example of a community would be a group of animals that live in a forest together that thrive off of the surviving wildlife. An ecosystem is essentially a bigger version of a community. However, the key difference between an ecosystem and a community is that an ecosystem consists of both living creatures and non-living objects, as well as the different weather patterns that all come together to form a working system. If you look at figure 2, it shows the effects of pesticides on all types of living creatures and the effects it has on the individual, the population, the community, and the ecosystem. The pesticides drastically change the way most of these living organisms are able to function and grow. If you look at mammals, for instance, the individuals are affected with their neurotoxicity, which changes their behavior, and in the population, it increases the mortality rate. If you look at the community section of Figure 2, you can see that these changes in the organisms lead to drastic changes in the community, like change in plant diversity over time, or the change in these food sources for all of these animals. And the effects that change in the communities affect the ecosystem. If you look in the ecosystem tab, you can see that all of these changes happening in the individuals and the communities drastically change the way that these ecosystems function properly.
The effects of global change on pesticide consequences. As you can observe from the readings, Figure 3 depicts a concept map-like depiction of global climate change, pushing and eventually leading to pesticide consequences. Moreover, specifically, climate change led to precipitation changing, which in turn paved the way for change of spatial distribution, unintended but still a consequence, advocation that global change does increase unintended effects on pesticide. Likewise, the effects of global change on pesticide consequences can also be observed and described in the following picture. As listed in the slide, the increase of global warming in agriculture can be directly seen to increase incidence and vector-borne diseases. A disturbance in the relative tranquil connotations to pesticide welfare and promotion of welfare can be easily overlooked by the well-defined connotations. Saying this, it can be observed as more unpredictable farming conditions in tropical areas and increased frequencies of extreme weather like flooding and storms can all be direct factors of global change affecting pesticide consequences.
Solutions. Microevolution. With microevolution being a constant obstacle for all types of pesticides, it will all come down to observation of what species adapt and evolve to determine how to effectively modify the chemical scientists use to control certain environmental factors. Also, we must understand as we evolve and try to control other things that other organisms will do, resulting in us having to make immediate action that won't damage the ecosystem nor the organisms themselves. And this is a small map down here, just basically showing the average size of male sparrows, just as an example of microevolution over time. Solutions for future research. This research will include many different things such as adapting to global warming and other environmental factors, making sure every pesticide used is still having the same effect that it did previously, along with making sure that these chemicals are safe for every organism and ecosystem across the country.